Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is the 14th part of What If Deku Can't Stop Adopting Kids. Hope you enjoy. Link to the original story and author in the description. Chapter 71, Security Plan. The last Grimm to come out of the forest wasn't quite what they were expecting. It was very canine-like. Much like a Beowulf, but also very different. It was a bit bigger than a Beowulf, as well as being more dog-like than wolf-like. Its body was also much less armored. In fact, the only armor on it was around its snout, with some bone-like spikes coming out of its spine and shoulders. But the most notable difference was that its body seemed less solid. Like Yami's Grimm vomit had only half solidified while making it. It wasn't a liquid per se, it looked more like melting ice cream than anything. That thing is super creepy, Toru said. It looks like something you'd see in a horror movie. Nina said, giving the creature a good hard look. I kinda like it. You have such weird taste, Kaminari told her. This is likely Yami's most versatile and impressive Grimm yet, Fu explained. You see, up until now, we were never able to make an intelligent Grimm because their brains just aren't capable of that. But, I had the idea of sticking a human brain into Yami's Grimm vomit and seeing what happens. What happened was this. Wait, where did you get a human brain? Achiko asked. Yeah, please don't skim over that part, Su added. Oh, we just opened Fu's skull and took out his brain, Shiroku explained. It took us a few tries to do it right, but we eventually got it right. That's fascinating, Izuku said. Ignoring the part where you cut open your brother's head and took out his brain dash. God, this place is weird, Kaminari commented. It's essentially like replacing parts in a computer so it runs better, Izuku explained. Using Fu's brain as a processor, you can make a Grimm much smarter than it otherwise would be. That's actually rather interesting, and also disturbing, Momo added. This Grimm can use its intelligence, and its special body, to adapt to almost any situation. Shiroku explained. Although it is blind, it has an enhanced sense of smell and hearing, so it can track people down extremely well, Fu explained. I think the best way to show off its abilities would be to have someone fight it. Anyone want to try? Kirishima raised his hand. I'll do it. Alright, please come over here and prepare yourself for battle, Kiba told him. Kirishima got up out of his chair, and the children stepped back to give the two fighters some room. The Hound and Kirishima faced off against each other, as Kirishima got into a fighting stance. Defeat him. Don't kill, don't hurt him permanently, Yami ordered. The Hound gave a growl of affirmation, before lunging at Kirishima. Kirishima raised a hardened arm, and the Hound bit down on it. The fake redhead gritted his teeth, as he felt the pressure of the Grimm's jaw come down on his arm. It was strong, but not that strong. Kirishima punched the Grimm in its unprotected chest, and felt his fist sink into its body, like punching goop. Ha! The student retracted his fist and looked down at the indent he left in the Grimm, as it quickly regenerated. The Hound then jumped back, before lunging back at Kirishima with its claws, slashing his chest. Kirishima hardened his chest, and the slashes bounced off. Growling. The Hound jumped back again, and paused for a few seconds, seemingly thinking about its next approach. You're gonna have to try harder than that to scratch me, Kirishima shouted. The Hound kept still for a few more seconds before suddenly, it started to change. There was a sickening cracking noise, as the Hound's body transitioned from canine to a more humanoid form. As its limbs extended, and its physiology changed to one that would walk upright instead of on all fours. Its hands also changed from paws to human-like hands with claws. Lastly, on the side of its neck, it grew gills. Oh, that is so creepy, Kirishima said before he saw the creature lunge at him again. But instead of clawing at him, it grabbed him and held him up to his chest. Then the Hound turned towards the lake and jumped in. Splash! Both of them entered the water, and then, things went silent for a minute. Everyone started getting more nervous as time went on, wondering if they would come back up. Splash! Kirishima was thrown onto land on his back, desperately struggling for breath. A second later the hound jumped out of the water and pinned Kirishima to the ground with one of its hands, before raising its other claw, ready to strike him down. "Stop," Yami ordered, causing the hound to halt its actions immediately. Mina immediately got up and ran over to Kirishima. "Kiri, you okay? You still breathing?" Kirishima spit out some water and took some more deep breaths. "Yeah, I'm fine. So, what do you think?" "Amazing, right?" Kiba asked the audience. Meanwhile, the audience was dead silent. After a little bit, Izuku got up and broke the silence. "Alright everyone, you've seen what the Grim can do, you can take your leave now, I'd like to speak to my kids." Class 1A, as well as Inko, agreed, because something was clearly on his mind, and left to give Izuku and the kids some privacy. Once everyone had left, Izuku turned to the kids. "Alright, so firstly, I want to say, you all did a great job designing the new Grim." Izuku started off. "There is a lot of creativity and thought that was shown here, and I'm proud of that." All the kids started looking prideful, happy to receive the praise, except for Amai who looked bashful, and Yami and Fu who remained neutral. But, Izuku added, "We can't just have these Grim in the forest as normal security alongside the Seers and Beowulfs." Eh? Most of the kids seemed shocked and confused by that statement. "Why not?" Kyoku asked/complained with a pout. "Because currently, the Grim are ordered to capture anyone who trespasses past the signs in the front. And if they get too close to the house, or if they attack one of you, they will attack the trespasser." Izuku explained. "They're ordered not to kill, but that doesn't mean they can't do it accidentally. An accidentality killing someone is a very easy thing to do if your method of attacking is shooting a giant laser at them, crushing them with rocks, or lashing them with barbed tails that are red hot. Seriously Kyoku, we talked about not hurting people." Kyoku crossed her arms. "Oof. And Grim aren't that smart. Except for the hound, none of those Grim would know not to use those attacks on people who would get killed by them." Izuku continued. "The Sabbers, Ravagers, and the Hound are fine, but the rest are too deadly to use as normal security." The kids thought about it for a bit and realized that Izuku was right, and looked a bit ashamed of themselves for not realizing that. Except for Kyoku. Kyoku had no regrets. "Look, the Phylon, Geist, and Sulphurfish are great Grim, and I'm sure they can help for Yami's hero work, or as security in extreme cases," Izuku explained. "I've been thinking of something called security levels. And some of these Grim could be used at higher levels, but not at level 1. The kids looked confused. Unsure exactly what Izuku was talking about. Izuku sighed. "Okay, I can only really explain it when I figure it all out myself, just give me some time, and I'll explain it to you later. For now, just hide the Grim away, and get ready for lunch." The kids nodded, all feeling a bit conflicted about how this all panned out. XXXXXXXXXX. The next morning, the kids from yesterday's Grim presentation were called up to Izuku's office, with the exception of Amai who had gone home yesterday. In Izuku's office, was Izuku at his desk, and at his side was Ida, Momo, and Achiko. On Izuku's desk was a big map of the house and the surrounding forest. "Kids, come in, Izuku told them. "Come here, let me show you something." The kids all walked up to Izuku's desk, looking at him attentively. "Alright, do you remember what I was telling you about security levels yesterday?" Izuku asked them. All the kids nodded, except Kiba who shook her head for a moment, saw that everyone else remembered, and then nodded, despite not actually remembering. "Okay, so the security levels are essentially measuring how bad a situation is, and what means we should take to defend ourselves," Izuku explained. "It's important to have things like this established. Otherwise, you could find yourself overdoing your security, and getting people hurt unnecessarily," Ida told them. "So let's start with level 1. This is the state the house will be in, most of the time," Izuku said, before pointing to the map. "Do you see this? This is the entrance to our property. This is the limit of where normal people can go before they are considered trespassing, and thus we can use quirks to defend ourselves. I have signs put up, warning people to turn back. So if they keep going, they either didn't see the signs, or they meant to trespass. That means they enter security level 1. During security level 1, we don't want anyone getting hurt. So the Grimm used are commanded exclusively to capture intruders, without harming them. Momo explained. As such, we decided that the Grimm that can be used at this level would be limited to sabbers, creeps, griffins, ravagers, and seers. As well as of course, the hound. Oh, I get it, you limiting the Grimm that can be used at certain levels, so that way people don't get hurt, but at higher levels, we'll use more Grimm because the situation is worse. Fu realized. That's right, Fu. Good job. Izuku praised, before pointing at another spot on the map. If an intruder gets here without getting captures, or shows violent intent, then we move to security level 2. Which is when the Grimm will be allowed to attack, to try and stop them. At this level, we decided that now, Beowulfs, Borbatusks, King Taijutsu, and Ursa can be used. Level 3 is when they're getting way too close to the house, or one of you. This is when we're sure that they're dangerous, we need to take them down. Achiko explained. All the kids will be told to get inside, and the amount of Grimm that'll be used will be expanded. Including Barangels, Blindworms, Sentinels, Deathstalkers, Geists, Goliaths, and Manticores. And then we arrive to level 4. Ida jumped in. It's at this point when the entire situation becomes dangerous, and we're willing to seriously harm an intruder in order to stop them. This is when sulfurfish, felons, Naklavis, and wyverns. I already started constructing barracks throughout the forest. These will contain most of the Grimm that won't be surveying the forest normally, Izuku said, before taking out a piece of paper and handing it to Yami. Yami, do you think you can make these? Just tell me if you think any of it is too much. Yami looked at the paper, and all the kids crowded around him to take a look. The paper itself listed Grimm and the amount Izuku wanted to be made. 50 Beowulfs. 20 Ursa. 15 Barangels. 6 Blind Worms. 20 Borbatusk. 25 Sentinels. 30 Creeps. 10 Deathstalkers. 5 Geist. 10 Goliaths. 30 Griffins. 2 Hounds. 10 King Taijutsu. 10 Manticores. 2 Naklavis. 50 Ravagers. 30 Sabbers. 5 Sea Felons. 100 Seers. 123 Sulfur Fish. 1 Wyvern. This isn't the amount of Grimm I want you to make. This is just the amount of Grimm I'd like to use for security. Izuku clarified. I'd have to count the amount of Grimm we're already using for security, but it would still be well over 100 Grimm. Do you think you could do it? Yami took a good hard look at the list, before looking up at Izuku. Need to go to the city more. Absorb bad feelings. I'm sure I can arrange something, Izuku said, thinking of ways to keep Yami safe while he went out. To think we'll have an army that big at our beck and call. Kiba grinned. Excellent. Well, at least we'll be safe, Shiroka said. And that's what matters. Kei added. Kyoko was overall acidified. She would have liked to see her sulfur fish used a bit more, but at least they were being used. Alright then, Yami, I call you when we want to make the Grimm. For now, go and enjoy yourselves. Thank you for trying to protect the house, I appreciate it very much. Izuku smiled at them, making sure they felt appreciated. The kids smiled back, and happily exited the room, to get on with their days. And thank you guys as well, for helping me plan everything, Izuku said to the 3 hero students. As a future hero, it's my pleasure to assist in making sure people are safe. Ida said. The same goes with me, Achiko said with a grin. I must also agree with them, but something tells me this isn't the end of the work needed for the security system. Momo surmised. Well, you're right, Izuku admitted. I've been talking to All Might, and he said he could get me in contact with David Shield. Wait, David Shield? As an award-winning researcher and leading mind in support gear development, that David Shield? Momo asked. The very same. Izuku smiled at the thought of getting to meet such a famous and important man in Hero Society. I want to see if I can purchase some security equipment from there. That's smart, Momo told him. Did the police figure out who sent the assassins yet? Ida asked him. Having a strong security system is very well and good, however, it's also important to determine who is it that wants you dead, and make sure they're sent to prison. Izuku shook his head. Unfortunately, Nise is still unconscious, and the assassin is refusing to talk. No one can figure out his motives, other than he's a quirk supremacist, and I'm quirkless. But he's not related to Nise, nor did he actually know her personally, meaning he didn't send her. So the mastermind is still out there, Ochako said with a grim expression. Ugh. Can't we just read his mind or something? That would be a violation of human rights. You can't read someone's mind or memories unless you have probable cause to believe it has already been altered. Ida explained. And you don't need to have your memories altered to be a quirk supremacist, just a lack of human decency. Don't worry, Ochako. We will get through this. Izuku said confidently. I promise you. I'm not going to get killed by bigots. I know you won't. I won't let them. Ochako promised. When will you be meeting with Shield? Momo asked. Just before Expo. I got my hands on an invite, so I'll be going there with the kids. Izuku explained. That's still quite some time away though, so for now. All I can do is wait. Well, actually I'm gonna need to test out the Grim security system first, but how? Ring ring. Ring ring. Izuku took out his running phone from one of his robe's pockets and looked at the caller ID. Nizu? Why would the principal be calling now? Momo asked. Izuku answered the call and put the phone up to his ear. Hello? Hello, Mr. Midoriya, I heard you were improving your security, Nizu said. Izuku's eyes widened in shock. How did you dash? Ida gives me regular reports about what and his classmates are doing over there, Nizu explained. Ah, that makes sense, Izuku responded. Well, you're right, we just finished about an hour ago. Why? Would you like to test this system? Nizu asked in a tone that sent chills up Izuku's spine, but also made him curious. What do you have in mind? Izuku asked. He could hear Nizu grin over the phone. Well, I happen to have another hero course class that could use some experience fighting against varied abilities, Nizu explained. I think we can help each other here. Chapter 72, The B-Team Part 1. Vlad King didn't like whatever was going on here. He had no idea what Nizu had planned, but as he and his class stood at the edge of Midoriya's forest, he just had a feeling in his gut that something was up here. Sensei, you still haven't told us exactly what we're doing here, said Class 1B representative Itsuka Kendo. Yeah, no offense sir, but you just kinda dragged us into a forest and didn't answer any of our questions on the ride here, Setsuna said, sounding as irritated as she looked. Vlad sighed. Alright, well now that you're here I guess it's time to tell you what exactly this exercise is. The class looked at him attentively, ready to finally know what was going on. Your mission is to reach the center of this forest, Vlad explained. There was a small pause, as the class waited for Vlad to continue. He didn't. Wait, that's it? Kamakiri asked. That's all there is to this? Walking through a forest? No, there is much more to this than or even I know. Vlad sighed. All Nizu told me was that you have to get to the center of this forest. There's a rather large house there, so you'll know when you've reached it. To be fair, it's a rather large forest, so it's going to take you a while. Well, that is rather ominous, Shishida said with a thoughtful expression. Whatever Nizu has planned, we'll take it down. Tetsu shouted with furious determination. Yeah. We will win. Pony agreed. Keep that attitude, Vlad told them. But be cautious, if the look of glee Nizu had on his face is any indication, then this won't be easy. Yes, sensei, shouted the class. XXXXXXXXXXX. So, how long do you think it'll take us to get to the middle? Setsuna asked. I have no idea, Kendo admitted. Sensei said it's a big forest, so it could take a couple hours. Yeah, well, we better run into something interesting soon, because this fucking boring, Kamakiri complained. Now, patience is key. We've only been walking for 10 minutes. Monoma reminded him. If you start losing your mind before the real test even starts, then you're no better than mutts like Bakugo Katsuki. Sen rolled his eyes. Unnecessary comments aside, Monoma's right. Calm your jets. I'm sure we'll encounter some opposition sooner or later. Shishida paused, as suddenly, the class encountered something. Floating in front of them was a seer. What the hell is that? Setsuna asked with mild disgust. I don't know, but stay back, Kendo warned her classmates. We don't know if it's a threat. I say we cut it open and find out. Kamakiri said with a smirk, as he formed two blades on his arms. The seer made some clicking noises, and its orb glowed red a bit. Ah! Creepy. Pony shivered. What should we do? Bondo asked fearfully. Just stay still. No one move. Kendo told her class. Ah! Kamakiri groaned with irritation. Nothing happened for a minute, just them waiting and the seer continuing to float there. Until suddenly, they hear something, running through the forest, towards them on all sides. Suddenly, they were surrounded by 10 sabers. What are these, some kind of saber-toothed tigers? Kozai asked, panicking slightly at the sight of them. They're demonic, Ibra commented with disgust, as she got ready for combat. We're surrounded. Rin pointed out, as he readied his scales. That orb thing must have called them. Kamakiri said, told you we should have sliced it. Alright, everyone get ready. Kendo told her classmates. If they attack, then you fight back. Until then, stay in defensive positions. We still don't know how this exercise is supposed to work. Pony aimed her horns, ready to fire at a moment's notice, while Shishida activated his quirk, along with Tetsu. I'll take this. Monoma touched Tetsu in Juzo, before moving on to touch Korwaro and Kamakiri. Class 1B got into a defensive position and got ready to fight back when attacked. But the sabers never attacked. Instead, just holding their positions, while growling menacingly at them. They're not moving. Sen pointed out. I know, but why? Kendo took a moment to think. Setsuna, can you get a bird's eye view of what's going on around us? Gonna be hard with all these damn trees, but I'll try, Setsuna said, as she split her eyes off her body, and let them fly up into the air. She looked down, and it was in fact hard to see with all the trees in the way, but fortunately, black and white were easy colors to spot against green. Setsuna could see Grim coming towards their position, and lots of them too. Even worse, she looked up briefly and saw that there was a flock of griffins coming towards them as well. Shit, Setsuna said. What? What's happening? Kendo asked. They're waiting for reinforcements. They've got lots more of these tiger things, and some weird bird things coming from above. Setsuna told her classmates, as her eyes came back down and reconnected with her body. We need to move. Now. Otherwise, we'll be hopelessly outnumbered and surrounded. Oh shit. Manga said, his head turning into an exclamation point. Alright, everyone charge forward. Don't try to take them on all at once, just run. Kendo ordered, before charging forward. Kendo smacked the 2 sabers that stood in front of her, out of her way, allowing her and the others to run forward. The sabers started running behind them, and they were fast, meaning that they couldn't escape them by just running away. Juzo, slow them down. Kendo ordered. Got it. Juzo took a second to stop, and touched the ground behind them, softening it, and turning it to something mud-like. The sabers sunk into the mud and got stuck, unable to traverse the now soft ground. While this was happening, Setsuna had her eyes separated from her body again, and they were looking down on them to see what was coming up around them. "We got 2 more coming up on our sides," Setsuna told her classmates. "One on our left. One on our right." "All right. My turn," Kamakiri shouted as he ran to the right, and Monoma ran to the left, using Kamakiri's quirk to grow blades out of his arms. Rah! 2 sabers jumped out at them from either side. Slice! Monoma and Kamakiri sliced their heads in half, killing them instantly, and causing them to fade away. "All right. With Setsuna watching over us, nothing can surprise us now," Tetsu shouted. "Yeah, unless something comes from underground," Setsuna told them. Then, suddenly, a few yards in front of them, about 12 creeps burst out of the ground to block them. "You just had to jinx it, didn't you?" Korwaro scowled. "I got this," Kendo said, enlarging her hands. "No, allow me, Lady Kendo," Shishida said. The well-spoken beast enlarged himself, and ran down on all fours like an animal, and lead a feral charge towards the creeps. Rah! Shishida knocked all the creeps away like bowling pins with his massive arms, clearing a path. "Move out of the way. Kendo smacked aside what remaining creeps were around, which let the class run along without issue. "Those bird things are coming," Setsuna said, getting her eyes lower to the ground so they didn't get attacked by the griffins. Kendo looked up and saw 12 griffins coming down at them. "Rin! Pony! Shoot them out of the sky! Aim the unarmored parts!" Rin and Pony aimed upwards and started firing scales and horns at the flying beasts. The attacks pieced the mostly unarmored Grimm, and they couldn't hold against the rapid-fire projectiles, dying off and fading away before they could even get close. "Setsuna! Find us somewhere that's safe." Kendo knew they couldn't run forever, they'd have to take a break sooner or later. "Got it," Setsuna said, getting pretty tired herself. XXXXXXXXXXX. "They're doing pretty well, all things considered," Izuku said to Nizu over a video call. Izuku was alone in his office, looking at a seer that would show him Class 1B's progress. He couldn't see everything they did, but he could see enough. "I would hope so, the Grimm are only set to capture, not attack yet. It would be very concerning if they couldn't even get past opponents that weren't trying to hurt them," Nizu responded. "Although I think it's time we moved on to level 2. Don't you think?" "I agree," Izuku said before he spoke into the orbs. "Increase security level to level 2. XXXXXXXXXXXXX. Eventually, Class B found a small cave to rest in, and everyone sat down to take a small break. "I feel like my lungs are gonna explode," Bondo said while trying to catch his breath from all the running. "What the hell were those things?" Manga asked, his head turning into a question mark. "Demons. Demons straight from hell," Ibara said. "Normally I'm not with the whole religious thing, but I have to agree with Ibara here," Kozai said. "Clearly those are the obstacles Principal Nizu sent to stop us," Kendo said. "I feel like I've seen them before," Pony said, making a slight error in her speech. Really? Where?" Aways asked. I don't remember." Pony shrugged. "Sorry." "It's fine," Kendo assured her. "For now we need to figure out a plan. I say we stop running and cut him up," Kamakiri said. "We killed those things easily enough, let's just kill them all, and get to the middle of the forest. We have absolutely no idea how many there are of those things," Juzo pointed out. "Not to mention we don't even know if we've seen every type of, whatever those are. There was that weird orb thing, those tigers, some kind of griffins, and some weird underground dinosaur things." Sun listed. They can attack us at all angles, so whatever we do, we have to do it carefully, Kendo said. Suddenly Kendo was interrupted by a rumbling from above before a boulder slammed down in front of the cave entrance, plunging the cave into complete darkness. They found us! Manga shouted. We're sealed in! Bondo pointed out. Guys, Setsuna said, as she saw yellow eyes from deeper inside the cave, coming towards them. Kia! Suddenly ravagers swarmed them, attacking them with their claws and teeth. Aha! The class all tried to swat them away, but that didn't really do much. Ack! No one used their quirk. You might hit someone else. Kendo ordered, as she got scratched and bit up. Ah! Then what the hell are we supposed to deal with these things? Kamakiri asked while also getting attacked. Some of her classmates ignored the order. Korwaro used his quirk and jumped into the wall, staying safe from the Ravager's attack, same with Tetsu and Monoma. While Yui just tried to use her quirk on whatever she could touch. It didn't affect living creatures, so her classmates were safe. She just needed to shrink the boulder blocking the entrance to the cave. However, as she swung her hands around wildly trying to use her quirk, she noticed something. It was working on whatever was attacking them. That meant that whatever was attacking them, presumably the same kind of things that were attacking them outside, wasn't technically alive, and thus she could use her quirk on them. While this was good to know, it didn't help her much in this situation, given she was fighting a swarm, but she knew who this could help. Yanagi! My quirk works on these things! Yui shouted. What? Yanagi was confused for a second before she realized that if Yui's quirk worked on them, that meant they weren't alive, which means she could use her quirk on them. To test this out, she activated her quirk on the things attacking her, forcing them off of her and suspending them in the air. It worked, and the Ravagers were powerless against her quirk. Still, she would need to know where the rest of them were in order to stop them. My quirk works, but I need more light. Yanagi shouted. I'm trying. Yui was still looking to the exit, and eventually, she saw a sliver of light creaking out, and so Yui ran towards it, and put her hands on the boulder, shrinking it down to about half her size. Light flooded the cave, finally allowing everyone inside to see. Immediately Yanagi used her quirk and stopped all Ravagers that were attacking everyone, and brought them all together into a big ball. Kendo enlarged her hands, brought them on either side of the Ravagers, and clapped with all her might, crushing them all in one fell swoop. After that, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Everyone but Monoma, Tetsu, and Korwaro was covered in scratches and bite marks and were very much wishing for this exercise to be over already. Don't lower your guard, if they found our location then they'll likely send more, Kendo told them. We need to move, fast. Too late, Yui said as she looked outside the cave. What? Kendo ran outside to see what Yui was talking about, and when she reached the exit, she froze. Shit! Outside the cave was an army of sabers, creeps, griffins, beowulfs, borbotusks, King Taijitu, and Ursa waiting for them, blocking their path completely. Oh come on! Kozai complained as the rest of the class looked at the army they would be facing. Well, looks like Kamakiri's gonna get his wish, Sen said. Finally. Kamakiri seemed more excited than anything. A real fight. We are going to die, Yui stated in her normal monotone. Not on my watch. Kendo said, everyone get ready. Our goal is to escape. Staying to fight will only make more come to replace them. Cut a path through the monsters, and let's get out. As Kendo gave her orders, onto the cliffside the cave of located in, looking down on them, was a hound. Not yet participating in the fight, just watching. Chapter 73, The B-Team Part 2. Setsuna started the battle, raising her eyes into the sky to get a better look at the enemies, while Juzo jumped out in front, softening the ground, causing all but the Griffin-S to sink down into it. We got 30 wolves, 13 bears, 10 boars, 20 little dinosaur things, 18 bird things, 20 tigers, and 5 big snakes, Setsuna reported as quickly as she could. Meanwhile, the Grimm were struggling with the softened ground. The Beowulfs, Creeps, Sabers, and Ursa were all effectively immobile, but the Griffiness just flew right at them, and the Borbotusks were able to curl into a ball and slowly roll through it, and the King Tygitus could swim through it. Juzo, when I say so, harden the ground. We can't afford to stay in one area. Kendo told him. Got it. Juzo nodded. Meanwhile, Pony and Rin kept firing at the Griffins, keeping them away from the group. Pony. Pony. Rin, keep the skies clear. Tetsu, protect them. Kendo ordered. Kamakiri, Monoma, take the snakes down. Shishida, Ibara take on the wolves. Sen, Aways, defeat the bears. Bando, slow down the dinosaur things and the tigers, and me and Yanagi will take care of them. Everyone else, support the others. Juzo now. Juzo touched the ground, causing it to become solid, and trapping all the Grim that had been stuck in the ground were now encased in it, immobile at least for the time. However, some were able to break through, those being the Borbodusk, Katis, Ursa, and Creeps, while the Beowulfs and Sabers were still struggling to get out. Rah! Shishida charged forward as a beast, and grabbed a Beowulf out of the ground by its head, and crushed its skull, before pulling up another one like a carrot, and smashing it into another Beowulf. Borbodusk rolled at them at high speed, and Bando jumped out in front and sprayed glue at them, causing them to get stuck to the ground. While the Borbodusk struggled to get out of the glue, Monoma and Kamakiri jumped over them and charged at the 5 KTS. One of the snakeheads lunged at Kamakiri, but the hero student just barely managed to jump over the attack, before flipping in the air and forming a blade on the back of his arm, to stab it in the head. Rah! The KT roared out in pain as the head that got stabbed flailed about, while Kamakiri hung on with his blade, digging it deeper into the Grim. The other head lunged at Kamakiri, headbutting him so hard he flew off its first head. Kamakiri hit the ground, making a blade come out of his back that stabbed into the ground, to keep himself from rolling too far. Meanwhile, Monoma ducked under one other KT snakehead lunge and formed a blade to slit its throat. The head reeled back and flailed about, while the other head took its turn to lunge at him. Monoma rushed to the side, and as the snake rushed past him, Monoma stuck his blade in its side, and slid it all down its right side. Rah! The Grim Snake gave a weak roar, as it fell to the ground, and died. Meanwhile, back with the rest of the class, Bando continued to glue the rest of the Borbodusk, while Yui went in and touched them with her quirk, turning them all into tiny boars. Yanagi activated her quirk, picking up all the miniaturized boars and bringing them together on the ground, and holding them down. Kendo then enlarged her fist, and slammed it down on the boars, killing them all. Meanwhile, Pony and Rin had taken down 9 out of the 18 griffins, but the rest were diving down towards them, getting a bit too close for comfort. One griffin went for Rin and was about to perform a diving claw swipe on him, when Tetsu got in front of him, and took the hit, doing no damage to his steely body. Tetsu grabbed the griffin's leg, and pulled it down, allowing Rin to get a perfect shot at its chest, killing it. Setsuna separated her hand from her body and carried Aways over to the Ursa, where Sin was dealing with them. Ducked under one of the Ursa's claw swipe, and then thrust his hand forward into the Ursa's chest, drilling into its body with his drill bit fingers, until his hand came out the other end, and the Ursa died, fading away into black smoke. 2 more Ursas charged at him, while close together, and he knew exactly what to do. He dashed forward and kicked one of the Ursa's head into the other so that they were touching. At that moment, Setsuna lowered Aways onto the 2 of them, and he fused their skulls together. R-ah! Both Ursas roared, as they tried to move around to attack, but kept tripping up as they couldn't move effectively while used. Meanwhile, Ibara used her vines to pick up some Beowulfs and hold them in the air, binding them so Shishida could tear them apart. Back with Kamakiri, a KT had wrapped around him and was now attempting to crush him, but that was a mistake, and Kamakiri made blades come out of all parts of his body that stabbed into the KT, killing them. Meanwhile, the Sabers had finally escaped from the ground and started charging at Kendo at top speed. Yanagi activated her quirk, and held up the Sabers in the air, albeit barely, as they were approaching the limit of what her quirk could lift. Manga then came in and used his own quirk. Kaboom! The onomatopoeia for kaboom came out, and floated towards the 5 sabers, and exploded when it reached them. But that was just the first wave, as while the 5 died, 7 more charged at them. Komori jumped out and spritzed the area with water, before jumping back. The sabers lunged at the students, but Kendo came in and slapped them aside. All 7 of the sabers got knocked on their side, but quickly got up, and were ready to retaliate. But they never got the chance, as suddenly, mushrooms started growing all around their bodies, including on their eyes and in their throats, causing them to swipe blindly as they suffocated. XXXXXXXXXXXX. It seems like they don't have too many issues with large groups, Izuku noted. He had already started writing whole notebooks worth of notes about both the security and the students. They have very interesting quirks. Indeed. I'm quite happy they've lasted this long without losing a single member of their class. Nizu said. Shall we see if they handle the level 3 Grim? Not yet, Izuku said. I want to see how they handle the Hound. Ah yes. That will be quite interesting indeed. Nizu chuckled, eager to see more from his students. XXXXXXXXXXXX. Every member of Class 1B was completely and utterly exhausted. They finally defeated every Grim that had come at them and had regrouped in the center of the clearing. Ha! Told you we should have just killed all of them. Kamakiri gloated. You're assuming that was all of them. Kendo pointed out. They'd better be. Setsuna groaned. Because if we have to fight more of these then ga. Suddenly Setsuna was picked up by her neck, and slammed into the ground, by an invisible force. Slam! 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 After getting slammed in the ground a few times, Setsuna was tossed at the rocky cliff so hard the rock cracked, and Setsuna instantly passed out. What the hell? Manga shouted out in shock, as everyone got ready to fight again, but none of them really knew where this enemy was. After a few moments, suddenly Yui felt something grab her by the back of the head, and lift it up, before being slammed down, face first, into the ground. Slam! 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 Much like Setsuna, Yui was slammed into the ground hard enough to crater it, knocking her unconscious. Damn it, can someone make it visible? Kendo asked. Komori charged forward and started spraying the area. She was then picked up by her face by this invisible force. However, she at least was able to activate her quirk in time. The invisible opponent was then covered in mushrooms, including in their throat, making it rather hard to breathe. It was then the Hound immediately became visible, in its upright form, and threw Komori away, as it struggled to breathe. What is that thing? Kamakiri asked. I don't know, but at least Komori killed it, Manga said. However, that was far from true. Suddenly, the Hound's chest started glowing orange, before a stream of fire came out of its mouth, destroying all the mushrooms and clearing its throat. You guys need to stop jinxing things, Owaze told them. Komori, get away! Tetsu ran towards the mushroom girl, as she was now far too close to the Hound, and completely defenseless. Unfortunately, he was too late, as the Hound turned its attention to the small girl, and opened his flaming maw. Whoosh! The Hound shot out fire at Komori, which engulfed her completely. Ah! Komori screamed as she was set alight. Rah! Leave her alone. Tetsu ran in, and punched the Hound in the face, not doing much damage, but pushing the stream of fire away from Komori. Meanwhile, Pony used her horns to pick up Setsuna, Yui, and Komori, bringing them to the rest of the class. 1B looked at their fallen classmates in horror, as they were all very injured, and completely unconscious. Their injuries aren't life-threatening, but they're still pretty bad, Kendo said, after looking at them for a bit. Grr! I'm gonna kill that thing! Kamakiri said as it ran towards the Hound, with blades coming out of his body. Kamakiri, wait! Kendo told him, but she was ignored. Meanwhile, Tetsu punched the Hound in the chest, and his steel fist just sunk into it, not seeming to do much damage. The Hound jumped back, and got back on all fours, before letting out a stream of fire from its mouth at Tetsu. Gah! Tetsu grit his metal teeth as he endured the flames. He'd been working on his heat resistance, so he could at least handle this much, although it did hurt a bit. The hound saw that its attack wasn't working, and so it stopped and took a second to think and analyze its opponent. It didn't get much time to do that though, as Kamakiri jumped in and delivered an attack from above with a blade coming out of his forearm. Die! Kamakiri shouted, dove down at the Grim. However, the hound simply caught his blade in its mouth. Kamakiri's eyes widened as he saw the hound's mouth glow, and he realized he'd made a mistake. Whoosh! Ack! Kamakiri shouted in pain as he took a flamethrower to the face. He tried to retract his blade, but the hound bit down tight on it, making sure the hero student was stuck there. Tetsu ran forward and punched the hound in its armored face, but the hound didn't loosen its grip. The steely student tried to pry its jaw open, but that was ineffective. Tetsu, get out of the way! Juzo shouted as he ran forward before touching the ground and activating his quirk. The ground softened under the hound, causing it to suddenly sink in and lose its balance a bit, and its jaw loosened its grip for just a second, but that was enough for Tetsu to jump in and pull his classmate out. Kamakiri was not in good shape, his face was burned a lot, and he was completely unconscious. Crap! Tetsu swore as he carried his classmate over towards the rest of the group. That thing is on a whole other level from the things we've fought. Sin pointed out. Well, at least now it's stuck, Cozy said. Dude! Don't jinx it! Awaze scolded. What? It's stuck! Look at it! Cozy pointed at the hound, who was struggling to move in the mud-like ground. What's it gonna do, fly out? It was then that the hound grew wings and flew out of the mud. The class looked at it in shock, before Awaze glared at Cozy. I think it's adapting. Kendo pierced together. The more we fight it, the more it changes itself to counter us. The hound then flew towards them and let out another stream of flames. The class dodged in separate directions as the flames came down, splitting the class in two. Pony and Rin shot it with their quirks, but the scales simply were absorbed into its body, doing no damage, and the horns didn't do much more than that. The hound turned its attention to the fallen classmates, who Pony had put down so she could focus on shooting it. It breathed another stream of flames around those students, causing the rest of their classmates around them to flee. The hound then grew another set of arms and dived at the fallen students, grabbing all of them in its arms, before going back up into the sky and flying away. No! Kendo shouted out, as most of the class was helpless to do anything here. Pony shot out 4 horns, hoping that she could snag her classmates from the beast's arms. But when the horns got close, the hound's head turned around and shot fire at them, destroying the horns and allowing it to get away with the students. TCH. Damn it! Korwaro said. Well, what's gonna happen to them? Bondo asked, fearful for his classmates. Well, this is an exercise thought up by U.A, so they're probably fine, Kendo said, calming down her classmates. They just failed the exercise. Well, that's a relief, Ibra said. Still, to think we'd have to face such a fearsome beast. It's like Monoma, but it doesn't have to touch people. And it doesn't talk. Cozy said. So in other words, it's better Monoma. Monoma gave him an irritated look. Why, you little dash? We need to prepare, Kendo told her classmates. We just lost 4 classmates to one of those, imagine if there are more? We can't be caught off guard like this again. A change of approach is needed. This isn't a race to get to the middle, it's a fight for survival. XXXXXXXXX. The hound is more powerful than I'd thought. Izuku said. In the end, it took out 4 of them, although they were already tired. Ah yes, it is a particularly nasty creature, isn't it, Nizu said. The power of adaptation is a very powerful ability. Combined with its unique physiology, I can see why my students would have difficulties defeating it. That being said, do you plan to continue going easy on them? Izuku paused for a moment, before sighing. No, This is meant to be like a real break-in, alright? Switch to Level 3 Security. Chapter 74, The B-Team Part 3. The remaining members of Class 1B were back on the move, rushing through the forest as quickly and quietly as they could. Stop, Kendo ordered, bringing the class to a halt. Korwaro, scout the area. Got it. Korwaro ran forward and jumped into a shadow. It feels like we're going in circles. Bondo groaned. I have to admit, it doesn't feel like we're making all too much progress without Setsuna, and the fact that we're in a forest and thus everything looks the same doesn't really help, Yanagi said. Come now. Don't despair, my friends. We are the great Class 1B of UA. Monoma told his friends. The greatest class UA has ever seen. We will get through this. Ego stroking aside, Monoma's right, if we give up hope then we've already lost, Kendo told them. We can do this, guys. It was at the moment that Korwaro came back, popping out of the closest shadow. There are a bunch of those floating orb things up ahead. And to out left and right. But there's a path we can take northeast of here that clear. Alright, everyone, we're heading northeast. Kendo ordered. XXXXXXXXXXXX. Eventually, the group made their way to another clearing, this one next to another cliff. I'm tired, Bondo complained as he tried to catch his breath. Yeah, I'm pretty tired too. Any chance we could take a break? Rin asked. Not here. We're too out in the open, any one of those flying things could spot us easily. Kendo said. We need to dash. Rah! Screamed something from above. Suddenly 2 manticores dived down from the sky and got ready to attack. Like that. Kendo shouted. The manticores opened their mouths and started shooting fireballs at the class. Aha! Owaze cried out in pain as one of the fireballs hit him and sent him flying back. Owaze! Kendo shouted out in concern. Tetsu and Monoma got out in front of the class and defended the class from the fireballs. Kendo ran to Owaze to check up on him. Owaze! I'm fine. Ack! Owaze groaned. He was covered in burns and had trouble getting up. Rin and Pony started firing at the manticores, but much like with the hound, this did very little to their thick hides and armor. I can't get through. Rin shouted. Tetsu! I need to get closer. Cover me. Sen shouted, getting behind. Got it. Tetsu said. The two started getting closer to the manticores, with the 2 beasts focusing their fire on Tetsu. Eventually, the 2 reached the monsters, and then Sen jumped onto Tetsu's shoulders, using them as a springboard so he could jump onto one of the manticores' back. Sen found an unarmored part on its back and started drilling into it. Although its tough hide offered some resistance, he could get through it with enough time. Rah! The manticore was obviously not pleased by this and started thrashing about wildly. Sen had to hold onto one of its horns, just to stay on as he kept drilling. After unsuccessfully trying to buck Sen off on the ground, the manticore took to the sky. And if that wasn't bad enough, the other manticore also took the sky, flying behind the one Sen was on, and started firing fireballs at him. Someone! Do something! Sen pleaded to his classmates. Fire at their wings! Kendo ordered. Rin and Pony opened fire once again, this time aiming specifically for the wings, which was hard with them flying around the way they were. However, with enough perseverance, they managed to shoot their wings enough to knock them out of the air. Juzo softened their fall. Kendo shouted. Juzo quickly ran out in front of them and softened the ground. The 2 manticores fell into the mud-like ground and quickly got stuck in it. Rah! Sen finally pushed through the hide and was now quickly drilling into the Grimm's insides. Aga! The manticore roared as it started to die, its body fading away into black smoke. Pony sent out another horn to catch Sen by his shirt, to keep him from falling into the softened ground, before bringing him to the rest of the class. Good job, Senior, Kendo praised him. Now let's go. What about the other one? Sen asked, looking at the manticore that was currently struggling inside the mud. Leave it, it doesn't look like it can follow us, Kendo said. We need to get out of here before reinforcements arrive. And with urgency, Class B fled back into the forest. XXXXXXXXXXXX. After a bit more running through the forest, it was clear that the class needed to take a break. All the fighting and running was taking its toll, and they wouldn't be able to go on much longer if they didn't sit down for a while. Kendo found a particularly dense part of the forest, covered in shade, and they all sat down to take a rest. Oh, I hate Nizu, I hate him so much. Cozy Eye said. I hate him and his smug little rodent face. Probably laughing his ass off as we speak. It's improper to say such things about your teachers. Shishida said. That being said, I can't disagree with you. Korwaro, please take a look around the area, Kendo asked her classmate. Ugh. Fine. Korwaro groaned, before sinking into the shadows and moving away. These monsters only grow stronger the more we travel. Ibara pointed out. As if we're descending further into hell itself. Yeah, and we still haven't seen that dog thing in a while. Sin pointed out. Ugh, don't remind me. I don't want to have to deal with that thing again. Awaze groaned. It wasn't just stronger than all the other ones, it was smarter too, Kendo said. If we run into it, we'll have to throw everything we've got into killing it. Yeah, I'm gonna get payback for what it did to the others. Tetsu swore. XXXXXXXX. Damn Setsuna, she had to go and get taken, so now I have to do all the damn surveillance, Korwaro growled. He moved through the shadows created by the trees, looking around for Grim that his class might run into. And of course that means I can't take a freaking break, Korwaro grumbled to himself. Because no one else can dash. Whoosh. Suddenly fire shot down from above, a few feet in front of Korwaro, lighting up the area, dispelling the shadows, causing Korwaro to pop out of the ground. What the hell? Korwaro quickly got, and as he was about to dive for another shadow, he felt a cool hand on his shoulder, and he froze up in fear. He turned his head, and behind him was the hound. Oh shit. XXXXXXXXXXX. Korwaro hasn't come back yet. Shota noticed, looking worried. You don't think something happened, do you? No way. Manga said. How would those things even be able to see him? Unless he was talking to himself, none of them should have noticed him, Sen said. You know how slippery it is. I'm sure he'll be fine, Kendo said, not sounding too sure herself. Guys. Suddenly, from deeper in the forest, they heard Korwaro's voice, but didn't see him. More enemies are coming. We have to move now. The only safe path is straight ahead. Come on. What? Damn it. Everyone get up, it's time to move. Kendo shouted as she quickly ran up. The class got up quickly, and made a run for it, going straight ahead like Korwaro told them. Eventually, they arrived at a dead end. A steep cliff, from where you could see the house from. Whoa! It's there! It's the center of the forest. Pony said with elation. That is a rather large house, Shishida noted. Guys! Focus! We just got backed up onto the edge of a cliff with monsters chasing us. Kendo pointed out, before looking back at the forest. Korwaro, get out here! A few moments passed, and Korwaro came out, unconscious, and in the hands of the hound. Class 1B's eyes widened in shock and fear, and they all backed up a bit, only to realize that there was a cliff behind them, and backing up much further would cause them to fall off. It took out Korwaro! Korwaro! Awaze shouted. It must have got him while he was surveying the area. Kendo decided. And it mimicked his voice to lure us into a trap. Tetsu and Shishida jumped out in front, ready to fight it. However, the hound had other plans. Suddenly, the ground started to shake, and a blindworm popped out of the ground, breaking up the ground on the cliffside, and causing it to become unstable. The ground around 1B quickly collapsed, and they started falling to the ground. Ah ah ah! They all screamed as they plummeted. Pony shot out 4 horns, putting 2 under her feet, so she could fly, and using the other 2 to catch Sin and Rin. Tetsu activated his quirk, with Monoma copying it. Yanagi used her quirk to move some nearby rocks, and grabbed onto them, allowing them to float slowly towards the ground. Shishida went full beast, hoping his bulk would protect him. Manga looked down and shouted, "Boing!" creating the physical word boing, that went to the ground, waiting to catch him. And for Kendo, she enlarged hands and held them out in front of her. Then everyone hit the ground. Crash! Most of the class hit the ground hard. Pony was fine as she gently floated down on her horns, setting down Sen and Rin, who she saved from the fall. Yanagi floated down as well, and Manga bounced off his boing. Tetsu, Monoma, and Shishida took the hard fall in stride. It hurt like hell, but they were mostly fine. Kendo's hands took the worst of her fall, and she grit her teeth as she was almost definitely sure she bruised them. But it was worse for everyone else, who had nothing to soften or slow their fall. Ugh! Kendo groaned as she shrunk her hands back down, feeling a horrible stunning pain in both of them. Oh, everyone? The class rep looked over her class. Of them, only Pony, Sin, Rin, Yanagi, Tetsu, Monoma, Shishida, Manga, and herself were still capable of continuing. Bondo, Shota, Ibara, Kozai, Awaze, and Juzo had all been knocked out by the fall. Damn it! Kendo cursed, blaming herself internally for having been tricked by that Grim. As the remaining members of the class recovered, suddenly the ground started shaking again, and a Geist in a rock golem body followed by 2 Deathstalkers and 2 Goliaths. They blocked their only way to escape, meaning they would have to fight them to get out. Monoma looked at the unconscious Juzo, who had fallen nearby, and touched him to copy his quirk, before running out in front of everyone, and touching the ground, and softening it. The Grim all began to sink down into the mud-like ground, with the Deathstalker becoming completely immobile, while the Geist and Goliath slowly trudged their way towards them. Alright, our only way out is forward. Yanagi blind that golem thing, and Shishida, attack its face that looks like a weak spot. Everyone else focus on the elephants. Yanagi used her quirk to grab all the tiny pieces of rock that had come with them from the fall, and brought them up the Geist's face, blocking its view. Shishida shrunk down again and turned to Pony. Miss Pony, could you bring me to its face? Okay. Pony said, shooting out a horn that Shishida grabbed onto, as it carried him up to the Geist's face, who couldn't see him because of all the rocks in the way. Once Shishida was above the Grim, he let go of the horn, and went full beast, and dived onto the Geist. Yanagi stopped blinding the thing, so Shishida could land on its body. Shishida then grabbed both sides of its mask and started pulling as hard as he could. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr stone body. The Geist brought up one of its stone arms over its face and smashed Shishida against its body. Gah! Gah! Shishida cried out in pain as the massive boulder smashed into him, but grit his teeth and continued to pull the Geist out of the golem. Plus Ultra. With a final cry, he pulled the Geist out of the golem and immediately crushed its head in his hands. Meanwhile, Rin was firing his scales at the Goliaths, which, as with all the tougher Grimm, did nothing. Pony also tried firing her horns at it, which was equally ineffective. Get me onto it, Sen said. Pony sent out another horn, and Sen grabbed onto it and let him lift him into one of the Goliaths. He tried to drill into the unarmored spots on its back, but unlike the Manticore, he wasn't making a dent here. I can't drill through. It's too tough. Shishida jumped off the now falling rocks of the Geist's golem and onto a Goltatha's back and tried attacking it, but to no avail. We can't hurt it, Kendo realized, before trying to come up with another plan. We can't run away when all the ground in front of us is softened like that. But if we unsoften it, they'll come straight for us. Then again, those things were slow even before we used Juzo's quirk on the ground. Maybe we could just run away. The class rep looked down at her fallen classmates. We have 6 down. Pony can carry 4 of them with her horns, but we'll have to carry 2 ourselves, and that'll slow us down. Still, we don't have much of a choice. Monoma! Turn the ground solid, we have to run. Kendo ordered. Monoma nodded, and touched the ground again, turning it solid again, and trapping the Grim in the dirt. However, the Goliaths immediately broke out, and the Deathstalkers were working their way out as well. Everyone run for it! Kendo shouted. Pony, grab whoever you can. Shishida grabs the 2 she doesn't. Pony did as ordered, grabbing Ibara, Juzo, Awaze, and Kozai with her horns and running past the Grim with her friends. Shishida jumped down and grabbed Bondo and Shota, and made a run for it as well. The Goliaths charged at them, but the class was able to jump out of the way in time. They were approaching the trees, and it looked like they could make it. And then 3 Baringels jumped out, blocking their path. Oh! Manga shouted. Rag! One of the Baringels charged at Pony, jumping at her with terrifying speed, before smacking her aside with its huge arm. Ah! Pony cried out in pain, as she was knocked aside like a rag doll, breaking her concentration, and causing her horns to drop, and her classmates to fall to the ground. Shishida dropped his classmates and charged at one of the Baringels. Rah! The 2 clashed, locking arms as they engaged in a contest of strength. That Shishida was quickly losing. The Biringel shoved him to the ground and started punching him down into the dirt. Get off him! Tetsu charged at the Biringel that was beating Shishida. Tetsu, watch out! Kendo shouted to try and warn her classmate. Ha! Tetsu turned his head and saw that a Goliath was charging right at him. OSH dash. Tetsu couldn't dodge in time as the Goliath hit him in the back with its tusk, sending him flying. Ag! Meanwhile, the Deathstalkers were finally pulling themselves out of the ground and getting ready to join the fight. And while that was happening, one of the Biringels had jumped onto the weakened Pony, and punched her in the face, knocking her out immediately. Monoma charged at the Biringel still beating up Shishida, using Tetsu's quirk, intent on stopping it, making sure to watch for Goliaths, but something else came to stop him. Slam! The hound jumped down from the cliff, landing right in front of Monoma. Monoma only had a moment to look at it in horror, before it grabbed his face, and its hands glowed yellow. Ah-ha! Monoma screamed as the hound shocked him with electricity, which ran all around his steel-up body, knocking him out as soon as it stopped. As Monoma dropped to the ground, the hound turned its attention to Yanagi, who stared at it completely terrified. She quickly reacted, picking up whatever was around, tree branches, rocks, whatever, and throwing it at the hound, which did absolutely nothing. The hound's arm extended, shooting out and grabbing Yanagi's face from a few yards away, and giving her the same taser treatment Monoma got. Agha-hey-ah! Yanagi gave out a ghastly scream, as she felt electricity course through her body before it suddenly stopped, and she lost consciousness. Meanwhile, Manga was running away from 2 Deathstalkers that were hot on his tail, only for a Biringel to come in from the side and clothesline him, knocking him out immediately. Rin tried to shoot at Biringel, but to no avail, as the monstrous ape quickly grabbed him with both hands, and started crushing him in its grip. Aga! Sen gave a desperate charge at the hound and shoved his drill arm right through the beast. He took his arm out and saw that he made a huge hole right in its chest, and for a second, he thought maybe he killed it. That thought was quickly proven wrong, as the hole patched itself up, as the hound regenerated in seconds. Kendo heard the screams of Sen getting tossed and knew she was now the last member of her class left. The Grim closed in on her, surrounding her with the hound staring her down. Did we ever stand a chance? Kendo wondered. XXXXXXXXXXXXX. As Izuku watched the last member of 1B go down, he gave his order. Alright, bring them all to the infirmary. Quickly. They made it surprisingly far, Nizu commented, having watched on his own seer that Izuku sent him. I honestly expected them to fall as soon as you sent out the level 3 Grim. But they didn't go down easily. No, they didn't. Izuku took a moment to think about all this. They got farther than I'd like, but at the same time it's a group of 20 UA students, so maybe that shouldn't color my opinion of this too much, and they didn't even make it to level 4. Then again, I don't want anyone to make it to level 4. I recommend we see what 1B has to say about the system, and then we'll decide if it was adequate or not, Nizu told him. I guess, that's best, Izuku said. I just have to wait for them to wake up. Chapter 75, B-Team. Out. Oh. Kendo groaned as she finally opened her eyes, and light flooded in. Kendo immediately recognized that she was lying on a bed, in some kind of infirmary. She sat up and saw her classmates laying on beds nearby. All of them having their injuries treated. Ow! Setsuna groaned, as she too started to wake up. Did anyone get the number on that fucking bus that hit me? Various groans across the room could be heard, as everyone started to wake up. Ah, what happened? Yui asked. Where are we? Korwaro scowled. This doesn't look like the UA infirmary? Juzo pointed out. You in my house. Everyone looked to their left, and saw Yami, patiently staring at them while sitting in a small red chair. They all paused for a minute, noting his appearance and how similar it was to monsters they fought. You brought here after my Grim beat you, Yami explained. Wait, are you the one that made all those monsters we fought? Manga asked him, his head becoming a question mark. Yami nodded. My Grim. I make them with my quirk. It's very strong quirk. I would have to agree. Ibara shivered. To think a child could command such an army of demons. Wait, does that mean we got our butts kicked by 6-year-old? Kamakiri shouted. Damn, that sucks. Setsuna added. Many of the Class 1B members groaned at the humiliation they suffered, getting absolutely demolished by a boy who didn't look older than 10. Now everyone don't despair. Monoma said. Our defeat to this child is not the embarrassment you may think. It's not as if we engaged a child in 1 versus 20 combat, he sent an entire army our way. We fought hordes of terrifying beasts before we fell. Don't forget that. That does make it less embarrassing, Rin admitted. Kendo sighed. Not feeling any of her frustration deplete. Still, we failed the exercise. No, you didn't, Yami said. Huh? Most of the class gave him confused looks. Kid, we were told to get here, and we didn't, Sen explained. Sounds like we failed to me. Yami shook his head. Nizu said you can't fail. Because task was impossible. Shouted the entire class. It was then that the door opened, and Recovery Girl came in. Yami dear, I told you not to disturb them while they were recovering. Sorry. Yami apologized. Got excited. I understand dear, but go wait with your father for now. You can hear from them later. Recovery Girl told him. Yami nodded, and obediently left the room, just as Momo entered. Yayorozu. Kendo gasped, shocked to see her here. What are you doing here? Let me guess. Class 1A was given the same exercise as we were, I bet you didn't get anywhere near as close as we did. Monoma gloated. And for that matter, Thankfully, Yanagi cut him off, but using her quirk to hit him in the head with a nearby metal tray. Well, it's rather difficult to explain, Momo said. To start with, you are currently located in the infirmary of the Midoriya Foundation estate. Wait, Midoriya Foundation? Shishida paused. Wasn't that the foundation owned by the young man who was nearly assassinated not too long ago? That's correct, Momo said. The Midoriya Foundation is essentially a place for overly powerful children whose parents leave them for one reason or another, are to be raised, such as Yami who you just saw. A place for OP kids, okay, that makes sense, Setsuna said. But still, what's a member of one doing here? Weren't you guys on a trip? This is the trip, Momo explained. We were sent here to assist Midoriya after he fell ill. He is currently understaffed, so we're acting as temporary staff, while also fulfilling our academic duties and training. And as temporary staff, it is also my job to inform you that Midoriya and Principal Nizu are waiting for you in the main office. If you want more of your questions answered, then you'll likely need to head up there. I can lead you if you'd like. That would be great, thank you, Kendo said. I think we'd all like to figure out what is going on. XXXXXXXXX. Momo led them all to Izuku's office, where Izuku himself was waiting for them at his desk, with Nizu also being present, having pulled up a chair beside Izuku, behind the desk. Yami was also present, sitting beside the desk, waiting patiently. Ah, Class 1B. Nizu greeted them. I'm glad to see you're awake. It seems Recovery Girl did another fantastic job. Ms. Yayorozu, if you would. Of course. Momo promptly left the room, leaving only Class 1B, Izuku, Yami, and Nizu. Well, then, I suppose you all must be very confused, Nizu said. So allow me to start from the beginning. Class 1B looked at him attentively, finally ready for an explanation. As you may have heard, Mr. Midoriya here was the victim of an assassination attempt, Nizu explained. As such, he was looking to improve his security system. Using the grim little Yami over there creates as guards. Yami waved, and Kendo gave an awkward wave back. And so he developed a new security system, but had no way to test it. Nizu continued. And that is where you came in. Wait. So you used us as lab rats? Kamakiri shouted in outrage. No, of course not. Nizu laughed at the accusation. Being a lab rat only benefits one person, whereas this is mutually beneficial. He gets to test his security system, and you all get experience. Experience? Korwaro scoffed. Yes, thought this you gained many new experiences, Nizu said. Experience in fighting multiple opponents, experience in fighting clever opponents, flying opponents, stronger opponents, fighting forest, being trapped. There is so much valuable information that can be gained from this exercise that your next class will be entirely about analyzing your time here and how you could have improved. Of course, we didn't expect you to actually complete the exercise. Izuku jumped into the conversation. Not to say you guys aren't powerful or skilled, you guys actually made it farther than we thought you would. It's just that some of the grim we have, and the number we have them in is a bit much for most people. I'm honestly glad you didn't make it to level 4. The grim at those levels are brutal to say the least. Wait. Level 4? Sun interrupted. What do you mean level 4? The level system was made so that way threats are taken care of appropriately. The deeper you get into the forest, the higher the security level gets, and more dangerous grim get added. Nizu said. That explains why things kept getting harder the deeper we went into the forest. Kendo surmised. And we didn't even make it to the maximum level. Well, to be fair, you made it to level 3 out of 4, so you got pretty far, Izuku said to comfort them. To think there are things worse than that hellhound. Ibara shivered, as did the rest of the class. Ah yes, the hound, Nizu said fondly. That one was an exception, Izuku told them. The hound is an intelligent, ever-adapting grim. The only kind of grim that can think on a human level. It's probably one of the toughest grim Yami has ever created. But since it's intelligent and can adapt, I don't have to worry about accidentally killing someone, so it can act at any of the security levels. Well, thanks for the nightmares, Greenie, that thing will haunt my dreams for at least the next few months, Setsuna said bitterly. My apologies, Nizu didn't tell me that he wouldn't be informing you of what you'd be facing. Izuku gave a brief bow. Also, I would like to ask what you thought of my security system in general? And if you have any advice on how to improve it. How to improve it? Manda asked, shocked as hell. Who's trying to kill you? The US Army? We don't know who is currently after Mr. Midoriya's life, as such it is better safe than sorry, Nizu added. Well. Kendo thought about it for a moment. I feel like the difference between your air troops was too big. The bird things were rather easy to dispose of, while the flying lions were far more dangerous. I feel like there could be something between the two that is both more numerous and more difficult to defeat. Something between the griffins and manticores. Izuku paused. Come to think of it, no new air-based Grim are added in level 2. In fact, level 2 was actually had a somewhat disappointing performance. So maybe more kinds of Grim can be added there? Yami jotted this all down on a notepad he brought, listening very closely to what everyone was saying. Other than that, everything seemed pretty solid, Kendo told him. I doubt anything other than an army of powerful villains could get through. Although having not seen level 4, I can't give you my full opinion. That's completely fair, thank you for your input, and thank you all for your time, Izuku said, opening one of his desk's drawers, and pulling out a stack of checks. Excuse me? Nizu's expression didn't change, but he seemed but surprised and slightly displeased by this. This was not what we agreed upon. I said the same thing to you when you had them go into that forest blind. Izuku reminded him as he put the checks on the table. And you said, and I quote, but it's not what we agreed upon. Touché, Mr. Midoriya. Touché. Nizu replied. Oh sweet, we're getting paid. Kororio was the first to grab his check, with the others swiftly following. Oh man, look at how much this is. Setsuna said, admiring the check. This makes getting beat up by a giant dog almost worth it. Heck yeah. Thanks, Midoriya. Tetsu said. Are you sure this is okay? Kendo asked. This is a lot of money. It's fine, this won't even make a dent in my wallet, Izuku told them. And it's the least I can do after you help test my security system. Yes, be very grateful for Mr. Midoriya's generosity, Nizu told them. That being said, the school day is coming to a close, so I believe it's time we took our leave. That would be for the best, Izuku said. Thank you all so much for your contribution to keeping my children safe. I know you'll all become fantastic heroes. That will be it for this part. I hope everyone enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and comment if you want part 15. If you want to hear more from me, subscribe. I hope to see you all in the next one.